Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. A continuation to a story I talked about in my previous video. Eddie Hearn suggested that Michaela Mayer and Sandy Ryan should fight, but there's one hurdle, that they're both trained by the same guy. They're both trained by Kay Karoma. To that, Michaela said, not anymore, let's run it!
My previous video, I talked about how Michaela made the decision to sack Kay Karoma on the premise that he's training someone that she wants to fight.
She wants to fight Sandy Ryan. Sandy Ryan, who seemingly responded to Michaela Mayer, without tagging her, by saying, I've got some catching up to do. I need those straps first. Natasha, Lauren, and Ivana have something I want. I've got bigger fish to fry first. I'll see you later down the road.
What?
You see, I don't like the sound of that. I don't like the sound of that because by now we all know that Ben Shalom and Boxer, they're not going to send any of their fighters to Matchroom.
That's established.
Which means, in order for you to fight one of them, you'd have to go over there, but they would have to make you an offer to go over there, and I don't think they're going to. They've got their own thing going on. They've got Lauren Price, they've got Natasha Jonas. Rumor has it they're also working with Ivana Habazin to do their own mini tournament at 147 pounds.
Right?
So when you say that you can't fight Michaela because you would prefer to fight one of them, who says you're going to get the chance to fight one of them? Unless Ben Shalom makes you an offer to come over to Sky, that's not happening.
He's not sending Lauren Price to you. He's not going to send Natasha too.
Lauren literally just fought, not but 2 weeks ago. Natasha was supposed to be fighting Michaela in June or July, but I'd wager that now she's going to fight Ivana Habazin.
They're going to do a unification match between them.
I'd wager that's the next play, that's the next move, because they're practically on the same schedule. On that timeline, none of those champions are available to you. So how could you put down a Michaela Mayer fight on the premise you're going to fight one of them when you're not going to fight one of them?
It's not about to happen, but a Mayer fight can. Michaela is available, and she wants to fight you.
A lot of people are of the opinion that Sandy Ryan is too big and too strong for Michaela Mayer. That seems to be the preliminary prognosis for the fight, the forecast. A lot of people think Sandy beats Michaela. She is naturally bigger than Michaela. Michaela's not a natural welterweight. She used to campaign all the way down there at 130 and eventually moved up to 147, whereas
Sandy's a tall drink of boxing.
she's a big girl, naturally bigger than Michaela Mayer.
Not necessarily in terms of height. In terms of height, they're about the same in terms of physical dimensions, height and length.
It's in build where they differ. But Sandy's got a bigger build, a bigger frame than Michaela Mayer. Even if their physical dimensions are somewhat similar, their builds aren't.
Sandy's bigger.
Sandy's stronger. I'd wager, punch for punch, Sandy Ryan has more single punching power in a single punch than Michaela Mayer. Michaela Mayer, who hasn't racked up a knockout in a very, very long time. It's been years.
And yet, it's Michaela Mayer pushing for the fight, and it's Sandy Ryan pushing away from it, saying that she would rather fight one of the other champions. We all know what the political situation is at 147 pounds. We all know Boxer is not going to send one of those fighters to you, so you've got to go to them. But who says they want you to?
That even if you favor Sandy Ryan to win this fight, you have to admit, based on this and her reaction, it doesn't really sound like she wants it.
Gee, you think?
Naming fighters that are not otherwise available to you in place of this one, that is
A thought.
Michaela Mayer's been with Top Rank her entire professional boxing career. They got her to some titles and they put her in some big situations, but she always seemed like a pet project for them, from where I'm sitting, that they haven't made the commitment to women's boxing that, say, Matchroom has made, or even Golden Boy. Golden Boy's had more female fighters signed under contract than they have.
I don't think Top Rank is committed to Michaela anymore. She's not a champion.
She's not a big ticket seller here in the States, so maybe Top Rank aren't as interested in her as they were at the start. I think she'd be better off crossing over and going to Matchroom.
At this point in her career, I think Matchroom is still committed to women's boxing,
where Top Rank's commitment was never really equal, just something they were experimenting with.
Not talking about just for a Sandy Ryan fight. in a very general sense, in a promotional sense.
You know, Michaela hasn't actually fought under the Top Rank banner on a Top Rank show in something like a year, 2 years.
She's fought on boxer shows and at least one Queensberry Promotions show. They've outsourced her to the United Kingdom. And maybe that strategy made sense in the build-up of a Jonas fight. But another way to look at it is, they couldn't be bothered with her?
That is, they couldn't be bothered to spend the money they would need to spend to bring her fights and her opponents to America, so they outsourced her.
To a degree, it made sense.
But that's another way to look at it. That they had no plan, no real vision for Michaela after the Baumgartner loss.
She should go to Eddie. She should go to Matchroom. Not just because of a Sandy Ryan fight, but because I think Matchroom would promote her better than Top Rank is.
Than what Top Rank is doing right now. Top Rank just doesn't have much use for her, and that's the reality of it. Elsewhere in the world of boxing, boxing insider Rick Glacier continues with the doom and gloom as it pertains to the PBC, saying rumors abound that if a deal for an investor doesn't happen quickly, PBC is on the verge of total collapse. And from a very reliable source, the June 15th show featuring Gervonta Davis and David Benavidez, that doubleheader, is going to be Amazon Prime's last boxing event with the PBC, no matter how many buys it does. PBC keeps losing TV streaming partners, some as a result of PBC dysfunction. This will be the 11th TV streaming partner that the PBC has lost in their 9 years of existence. Not a good look in the corporate world, and where in fact Top Rank, Golden Boy, and Eddie Hearn are planning boxing shows for as far away as August and September, the PBC has zero scheduled after June 15th. It's all doom and gloom at the PBC. Could the end be near? Or is there a Hail Mary sweetheart investor coming forth with more money for Al Heyman to fuck off, to squander away?
Part of the rumor I heard is that there is a Hail Mary investor, but he's not necessarily invested in the PBC. He wants to use their fighters.
Who's the investor?
Turkey Al-Sheikh.
It's not surprising that he's not going to swoop in with his checkbook and bail them out so much as he has use for what fighters remain there, what fighters they still have. Don't shoot the messenger. That's just what I was told.
And I'm relaying it over to you.
Why do you think it's called the relay? Don't shoot the messenger. But Luis de Cubas Jr., who's running things over there at the PBC since Al Heyman is MIA. That's the story.
Luis de Cubas Jr. is trying to hold things together, but he's stressed out. Stressed and pressed.
So where did the PBC go wrong? Well, it's not any one thing. It's not any one mistake. It's several mistakes, several pitfalls over the course of 8 or 9 years, thinking that you could operate like a biosphere, independent of the rest of the world of boxing.
You can't.
Perhaps they were always doomed to fail. Go back to the beginning when they got all of that Waddle and Reed money. It didn't take long for them to fuck it all off. You're talking about $500 million.
Wait, go back even further.
The fighters that eventually formed the PBC's inaugural stable were all fighters that they funneled from Golden Boy Promotions over to what became the PBC. But how do you think they were able to do that? How do you think they were able to get that many fighters to leave Golden Boy Promotions?
In the beginning.
The promise of big cash, big purses. See, from the very beginning, it looks a lot like there was a lot of overspending, gross overspending, paying these fighters well in excess of their market value.
Al Heyman's strategy of bringing boxing back to terrestrial television might have looked good on paper, but in the real world, it didn't pan out. And it didn't help at all that you're also burning through vast sums of cash, overpaying these fighters for fights
that don't move the needle.
You're paying guys in excess of $1 million for some of the softest matchmaking in the industry, to the point to where the fighters became fat and happy and spoiled.
And even after you burnt through all of the Waddle and Reed money, you were burning through Showtime's money, and then it was Fox's money.
Maintaining that biosphere approach.
Thinking that you could isolate yourself from everybody else, just keeping things in-house when the matchmaking in-house wasn't strong enough to stand alone. It wasn't strong enough to keep you on Fox, and apparently it wasn't strong enough to keep you on Showtime either.
Not strong enough and not cost feasible.
As there is more to it. This is just a general overview of where they went wrong.
There were a lot of mistakes.
But in a very general sense, those were some of the bigger ones. And for the longest time, I told you that their modus operandi is not sustainable. And sooner or later, Fox is going to leave them and Showtime is going to leave them. For that, I got called every name in the book.
Just to end up being right?
Till this day, after all the smoke is settled, there are still those that hold a grudge that I forecasted this for years.
Well, you want I should lie to you?
The latest chapter, the PBC's migration over to Amazon Prime, which I told you from the very beginning was not a deal akin to the Fox deal or the Showtime deal, that Amazon was not making a commitment to this promotional outfit like those other platforms were. This was just a distribution deal that may soon come to an abrupt end, because you know what?
What?
They haven't announced anything for after June 15th.
Nope.
What's their comprehensive schedule of fights? What?
They announced that they would be going to Amazon late last year, and about 5 months into this one, they've only done 2 shows.
Just 2. Rumor has it, Davis versus Martin will be the last one. So you're telling me that just 3 fights into the deal, it may be over. I thought it was supposed to be 12 to 14 shows. They may wrap this up after just 3.
You don't see how the PBC is an abject failure?
After burning over $500 million and all that network money at Fox, all that network money at Showtime and NBC.
Where's El Heyman? The work is magic.
I told you for years that guy doesn't know what he's doing. That maybe he was a decent manager when he was just managing fighters. But he tried to put on a promotional hat, and that's a different beast.
Managing a fighter or some fighters, that's one thing. Being a promoter is quite another, and that's what he was, brokering deals with all these networks.
He never called himself that by name, and likely didn't want to be known as such, as that would find him in violation of the Muhammad Ali Act. You can't manage and promote and advise fighters.
Too much control over the athlete.
Creates a conflict of interest to where you may not have the fighter's best interests in mind as his manager, because you're also acting as his promoter.
Promoter's got a responsibility to platform more than a fighter, and the manager's got more of a responsibility to the fighter than a platform.
What?
Promoter's got a responsibility to platform more than a fighter, and the manager's got more of a responsibility to the fighter than a platform.
The point is, he fucked up. And he's been fucking up. He's been fucking up for years. The PBC.
This may be the end.
Be surprised if the PBC survives till the end of this year, because it's looking more and more like their fighters will be dispersed, distributed between what promotional outfits are out there and what outfits can use them, and the PBC as a brand may cease to exist.
On April the 20th, you was skinning and grinning from ear to ear. You was happy to tell the world about the 3.2 pounds that you helped Brian Garcia come in overweight with. Now that he done tested positive for 4 PEDs, now you want to head for the hills and go quiet like you in Dubai somewhere. Well, I'm going to tell you, Floyd, wherever you at, what me and the world want to know is, we know you was the middleman to Ryan Garcia's victory, but what we want to know is, are you the middleman to the steroids?
I think that's a legitimate question, because Ryan Garcia himself confessed that a part of why he came in 3 pounds over is because Floyd told him to. Ryan Garcia himself, who doesn't seem to be taking this anti-doping case all that serious, he posted on his social media, "Let's go, we're positive. Positive vibes, bruh. Yes. So happy."
Some people think it's funny.
Ryan's followers, who really don't follow the sport of boxing as closely as I or you, they follow Ryan more than anything else, and they go by whatever he says. So when he says stuff like this with everything that's going on, well, it's funny. It's funny to them.
I fucking love steroids!
And they lap it up. They laugh it up. But it actually caught me off guard. It caught me a little bit by surprise that a professional boxer was laughing it up. A young female fighter that goes by the name Florencia Pajares, set to make her professional debut on what is Danny Garcia's promotional debut. He's going to be promoting his own show. She's fighting on the undercard. And I saw her laughing it up in Ryan Garcia's comments.
So strange about that.
Well, Ryan Garcia's demeanor towards this entire situation may seem funny to those who are not directly affected by it.
His young fans.
Doping in the sport of boxing may seem a laughing matter to them because it doesn't affect them. But for a fighter,
isn't it supposed to be different?
This provoked me to go back to that thought experiment I talked about in a previous video, how perhaps Everybody in the industry, or most people in it, are doping. The fighters know they're doping, and so do their managers and their promoters. But to the public, to the boxing community at large, they pretend like they don't.
Why?
Because it's a liability issue. If the fighters know they're doping, and their managers and their teams and the event coordinators, if they're all aware of this, and they're having fighters fight in fights under these circumstances, well, God forbid anything happens. Permanent brain damage or death.
Right?
In a situation like that, if it becomes known that a fighter was doping, his manager knew he was doping, as well as his promoter, well, that's a big liability issue, isn't it? That's in the short term. In the long term, what are the long-term effects of a fighter doping?
And what consequence might that have on that fighter's manager or that fighter's promoter if they were doping and they knew they were doping and they didn't do anything about it?
So in this thought experiment, the reason that the whole sport of boxing might actually know what's really going on, but they pretend like they don't, is because they don't want to be held responsible if something happens.
You got all that from a young fighter laughing at Ryan's tweets?
Not really. I was already kind of playing with that idea, but it caught my attention because one would think that a young fighter that hasn't gone pro yet would be concerned with something like this. They wouldn't think it's a laughing matter, but this one does. I wonder why.
Does she know something we don't?
So now Bill Haney has taken to potentially implicating Floyd Mayweather in all of this because if nothing else, Floyd Mayweather helped to facilitate Ryan Garcia's weight advantage. That he came in 3 pounds over and Ryan said it was Floyd that told him to do it. Well, what else did Floyd tell you to do?
Did he tell you to use Osterin?
Did he facilitate that too? It is true that Floyd Mayweather seemed to have been involved, had a lot to say in the buildup of the fight, and I guess in some parts of the immediate aftermath, but now that all of this is going on, he is quiet. He's at a loss for words.
It's important to note that Floyd Mayweather himself never actually tested positive for a banned substance, a SARM, a steroid, something like that.
The most Floyd ever got caught with was an IV. And to this day, some people think it was illegal.
It wasn't.
The Nevada State Athletic Commission's Bob Bennett at that time said it wasn't illegal, that Floyd didn't break any rules, and it was as simple as that. But what's interesting is that IVs can be used as masking agents for those who are using performance-enhancing drugs, and it just so happens that Ryan Garcia is seen on camera using an IV.
Just like his old buddy Floyd.
The one who told him to come in 3 pounds over? What else did he tell him to do? What other tips and tricks did Floyd provide to Ryan?
It all looks a certain way, doesn't it?
No, I don't think it's the end of the world or the end of Ryan's career that he tested positive for a banned substance. Just don't try to pee on my leg and tell me it's raining. Don't tell me he's innocent.
No, he's not.
Not gonna play devil's advocate for him.
For what?
Simplest explanation is usually the right one, and it's likelier than not that he was doping, like a lot of fighters are doping. He's just one of the dumb ones that got caught.